Hello, hello, welcome to Code with Valmore. Today I wanna show you guys how to create data structures, the simple ones, okay? In order to do that, I'm gonna use a simple example. As you can read there, the idea is to consider we are developing a game, okay, and then we wanna store or hold some information about the players which are connected to our game. All right, so there are two ways of doing this. We can start top down or bottom up. By bottom up, I mean, okay, let's create first the basic libraries, and then we come to the application, to the main, and we implement. Or we can do top down. That's the way I like. Helps me to put my ideas together. So on this case here, I'm going on and I'm creating considering I'm having a library called players, and then this library helps me to add players, remove players, list the players. We're gonna do that here. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating the the interfaces, right? The functions which I think will be important for this matter here, which is adding players, removing players. Each player has some properties that we care about. One is the ID for the player, another one is the name of the player, right? And then we are having coins, and we are also having a status to understand if the player is connected or not, right? In C, there is no way to, sorry, there is a way to deal with booleans, right? So status here for us is gonna be either true or false, indicating the player is online or not, right? It's connected right now or not. So in order to use those keywords false, true, or bool, we need to include a library standard bool. You can see it at line 2. All right. What I did a few seconds ago was to reduce the number of arguments on the functions to add players. Okay, because if I'm adding a player right now, I'm considering the player is having 0 coins. Okay, and we can decide if the default value for the status is connected or not. Right, so we'll allow, once we implement the players module, the library, we can talk about it on the side, okay? If we try to compile that code that is there right now, it's gonna fail, of course, because there is no definition of those functions. Players add player, players remove player, players print list. So let's implement those guys. To keep the project organized, my suggestion is to create a folder to place everything related to player management inside. So what we are doing here is we are creating the players library, right? And then we will also create one file to define what is a player for our application here. We can always improve the names, right? But I will keep players there, and player is a single player. Players is the library responsible for holding the players information for us. So in C, if you guys wanna define a new data type, there is a special keyword which is type def, right? And if you guys wanna define a struct or a data structure to hold together some data which represents an entity for your application, you can use the struct keyword, right? So here on the code, you guys can see I'm defining a struct. It's not a variable yet. I'm defining a data type, basically, right? Which is a structure right now. So which data is part of the player struct? The ID, the name, the number of coins, and the status, right? Once we are using Boolean bool there, line 11, we need to include the library which defines what is a Boolean, okay? If we use this data type here everywhere where we are defining a new player, we need to use, or we need to declare struct, player struct, and then we give a name. A better way, or a way which I like to define data types is using type def, as you can see here. Oh, there's no hashtagging from, yes, type def. So type def alone is a keyword, so you can redefine the types. For example, you can use type def int and call a number. You can give a new name for integer, for example. On our case here, we are defining a type which is gonna be a struct, right? And the name of this new data type is player T. And I'm using those names, right? The naming conventions I'm using here is to try to help me when I'm writing the code to understand it's a new type. For example, player T is a new type. That's the reason why I'm putting T. I could have used type, the full word there, but sometimes we just make it simple to write. So I'm keeping a T there. It's not a matter. It's not a problem. All right. So now, if we have, or if we are defining data types or functions, we do that on the header file, right? It's the .h file. Probably we are going to include that file on several places, and then to avoid defining or redefining the same functions everywhere, or if sometimes we define a new type here, sorry, a new type or a variable or whatever inside inside the .h file. Usually we don't define variables, or we don't implement code, right? But we define data types, functions, prototypes, right? And it's always a good practice to define a bound define there to ensure we are including the .h just once we are defining. We can include the .h several times, but the content of the .h will be processed just once when we are compiling, right? Okay, if you guys saw the latest chart there, I explained how to compile more than one C file using Visual Studio Code. So here, what I'm doing now is I am putting the paths to the .c and .h files I created inside the player management folder. Okay. I also need to ensure we are accessing the .c files outside of that folder. So if I compile this code right now, probably it's going to fail because I forgot to include that information on the tasks.json there. There is something else that happened inside settings, I guess. Inside settings JSON, in order to Visual Studio Code to find the .h file for us, we need to add the path to the player management folder there also, so it finds. Here, what I'm trying to show you guys on the app.c is how to create a new a variable of the type player T. Okay, so here I'm creating a variable of that type and I'm changing the ID. As you can see, it was failing as I said. So here I need to come back and include the workspace, and then the star.c there. Here is where I added the path for the new folder. So when I compile, the compiler finds all my files and everything. I'm putting a breakpoint at line 25 so you guys can I can show you guys how the debugger works and how to visualize the content of a variable. Yeah, it was complaining about the path, but in fact, let's just put the entire path here to the .h file. Visual Studio Code doesn't make it easier for us. Anyways, all right, so it's compiling here, it's debugging, so it's going to stop there. If you guys want to know more about debugging, how to debug some code, please add on the comments. I will then record a video explaining a little more. All right, here, when I hovered the mouse over player, you guys saw the properties, and now you can see that ID is equals 10, meaning the code worked. Now we know how to define a variable of the type we created. All right. Okay, so let's clean up here. Let's do the second half of this video, which includes implementing the functions inside players.c. So I will do the same thing here. I will just go to players.h. I will define all the functions we need, and I'm going to also implement those functions on the .c file. Okay. So here on the main app, what I'm doing is I'm putting back all the functions we added before, and I'm fixing the include there. Now I just need to point to players.h. Of course, players is empty. So what I'm doing here now is I'm defining, I'm checking if a pound define is defined. If it's not defined, I will define it here to ensure this the compilation process just reads through this guy once. All right. So if it's not defined, I'm defining, and now I will write down here the functions I need as prototypes. So here we go. Yeah, one thing I mentioned before, but I'm not sure it's there. I will put on the comment on the description here is the link to the GitHub repository where the code I'm writing here for the channel is. So I'm uploading the code after I record the videos, right? So what I'm you guys will find the link on the description. Okay. Now, as you guys can see, line 6 and line 7 are the definitions or the prototypes for the functions. Let me tell you about the name of the player. You guys can see here, if you guys watched the video about the pointers, name here is an array of chars, right? It means it's a string. Okay, it's a reference. You guys see here, I'm not passing the length of the array. So the function will receive the reference for reference to a string, and then the library here will keep that reference. The reference for the string. It's not the best. Well, maybe it's not the way I like to do this. Usually what I do is I copy the content of the string to a local copy. So if the application using my library, if that application messes up with the string itself, deletes, for example, I'm not losing that reference. I'm not losing the content, because the reference I can lose, right? If my library is pointing to memory which was allocated or pre-allocated or allocated dynamically outside my library, and that code outside the library deletes or deallocates the variable, my library will fail, right? So usually I don't like that. I can create a short just to show you guys how to modify the functions to deal with with this copy of the content of a string, right? Another detail about strings is I don't need to pass the length anyways, right? Because the strings they end with a special character, which is \0, meaning the end of the string. So if I wanna find the length of the string, I can just use a function to find that \0 there, and then I know the length. Okay. Hey, you guys can ask, hey Valmor, if the string is not having that \0, then it's gonna be a problem. I spent some time solving problems like this before, but if you just use the standard libraries to manage strings, and then you don't need to worry about it. Sometimes you are reading the string from a file, and maybe you're not getting the \0 there, then it may be a problem. But anyways, let's move on here. I want to explain dynamic allocation for you guys, but I'm gonna do that on another video. For simplicity here, I'm considering the library is able to store up to 100 players, okay? And then I'm creating an array of players. As you can see at line 9, I'm defining an array called players. The length of the array is max players, so I'm creating a define. So basically, it replaces the constant by the number when it compiles. So it's not consuming running time here. So it's just pre-compile. It happens on pre-compilation step here. But so for simplicity, it's gonna hold 100. Okay. For simplicity here, I'm creating an index which will tell me what's the next position where I need to, or I will add the new player once I'm adding. Okay. You guys can ask, hey Valmor, so if I'm removing the player, what happens? I'm removing always the last added, the first added, or I'm really using the ID to remove, so I will create empty spaces on my array. Yeah, if we are not willing to add more complexity, right, it would be maybe easier to use dynamic allocation and use a special data structure called queue or list, but it's not the case now. We can also add other variables to help us point into the empty spaces on the array. So we can also use those other variables there to ensure we are putting new players on the empty spaces in between. What I mean is, okay, I added 3 players, and now 1 to 3, right? And then I'm removing player number 2, so I will have an empty space in between 1 and 3, right? So I'm fragmenting my memory. There are some strategies to avoid that. I can just rearrange my array and move everybody up 1 position. In this case, the player at position 3 would be moved to position 2, so I'm not keeping holes in between the players, right? It's gonna consume more time, but once we just have 100, maybe it's fine. Okay, but imagine I'm having a game with 1 million users, or maybe even more. If you look to Minecraft or any other game, online games, it's gonna be even more. So we need to use better algorithms there to deal with allocating, adding players, removing players, and so on. All right, line 18. Okay, at line 18, what I'm doing is, okay, I know I'm filling up a position on the players array, right? So I'm using a pointer to point to the next position to be filled up. Players square bracket index to add player. It's returning an actual position of the array, but I need the address of that position in order to store into the pointer, right? So that's the reason why I'm putting the ampersand in front of the players array at line 18. So I'm getting the reference to that position, and then I can just increment the index there. So next call to add player will actually put the new player at position 1. At line 20, I'm using the pointer, which is pointing to position 0 on this case. I'm using that pointer to actually fill up the data, right? So I'm using what I call arrow. So player arrow ID. That's how we point to a field on the data structure, right? So we have ID, name, coins, and status. I use that arrow operator in order to access the position on the data structure we have. So I can just copy the information. At line 21, you guys can see I just pointing the pointer name to the string I'm receiving as argument. I'm not copying the content, so that's a problem. What I'm doing now here is, all right, I want to have another function called add players with just 2 arguments. That's the way we use it on the main function, right? We are just passing the ID and the name. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding that guy also on the .h file, and I'm implementing it on the .c file. As you can see on the implementation, yeah, it's complaining already, right? But I want to compile so you guys can see the type of errors we can get. Yeah, it's showing here the declaration is incompatible, but anyways. So here on the .c file, we can see I'm using the function above. So it's the compiler won't work. It will mess up, giving us an error. So let me just put the body of those functions here in order to compile. All right, let me go back to app.c. Let me remove the breakpoint. Oh, let's shoot it. It's gonna fail anyways. Right, it's complaining about Boolean there, probably because it's not included. Let's go back there. Go back there. It's not opening. I was trying to open just by clicking there, but it didn't work. So line 6 has the Boolean argument there, so we need to include the library which defines that type of variable. All right. If we compile again, it's gonna now fail because of the name of the function. So there is a conflict between 2 definitions of the same function. It's complaining. So I will solve that by just changing the name of the first function, which receives the full list of properties of a player, and I will change the name here also to players, add player full, and then I just gonna change at line 27 to use that function. Right here I'm assuming the status of the player is false when I add, but maybe it would be correct to use as true. But anyways, yeah, it's compiling. So let's see if we can print the list of players. Where is the list of players? How do you guys would print a list of players considering it's an array? Let's use a loop. It's the easiest way, but again, loops are something we need to use loops carefully if we have a large amount of data. Here we have 100. I'm running on a good computer. On the average computer can run it pretty fast. So for now it's not a problem, but needs improvement. Oh, I made a mistake here. I forgot to include the definition of printf. It's gonna work anyways, and I'm trying to print %s, which means a string, and I'm not passing the proper argument there. So I want to print player's name, right? So it's a loop through the players, starting on 0, going into the max number 100, but I just have 2. Hey Valmor, do I really need to print all those 100? No, we can check if the name, for example, is null or not. It's a pointer, right? So I'm using a property of the pointer. If it's not initialized, it's probably pointing to a null, an invalid address, right? So I can just use the special word null here, and then I'm checking if the name is null. Is different from null, I'm not printing, right? So if it's different from null, I'm printing. If it's null, I'm not printing. And now you can see just printed the 2 players we added. We can add more details. It's just for debugging, but I like to make it a little fancy here. So let's put some markers to feel it's a report. Right, not a big deal, just \n to skip a line, to jump to one line, right? It's a new line there. So I'm opening a new line on the terminal. I'm printing those dashes there to make it look better. So, well, color problem. So they are there. So I'm just printing Valmor and the second Valmor there. All right. What else? Yeah, the other functions I will implement later for us. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like. Thanks a lot. See you guys later. Bye bye.